Hello, everybody. My name is Shama. I'm with Girls and Geese. I am the program director here at Girls and Geese. We are super excited today. We have on 3 individuals that will be sharing some incredible knowledge with us. They will be going over all things Para Jiu Jitsu athletes and Judoka athletes. So first off, I have Maximiliano Eulerk on. He has been training Jiu-Jitsu for 12 years. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt in the Miami area. He's under Master Helion Gracie. Helion Gracie. He sustained a T3 spinal cord injury and as a result has 1/3 of his body function and had to relearn how to use his new body in coming back to jiu-jitsu. He's been a huge advocate for adaptive jiu-jitsu athletes. He started the Jiu-Jitsu Without Limitations Federation, the U.S. Para Jiu-Jitsu Community and Competition team. He also founded the Free Para Jiu-Jitsu magazine to help educate readers on different limitations on how Jiu-Jitsu can help change their lives. He's worked with practitioners throughout the US in helping to teach them. He's gone recently on a road trip and taken his knowledge on the road. Next up, we have Marina Drašković. I tried. Oh, I had it almost. Okay. She is a judo black belt, has been training judo since the age of 9. She's a longtime member of the Croatia judo national team. She's a founder of the Judo Club for People with Disabilities, Fuji, which was established in 2012. The Judo Club for People with Disabilities, Fuji, is the first of its kind in Croatia, which brings together children and young people with different types of disabilities to learn judo. Since all the club activities are free of charge, these programs are provided by sponsors and donors. Next up, we have Ruben Bueno. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. He's a very active competitor in the Texas scene. He is a single father of 3. He was a victim of a serious accident which left him to be amputated above the knee. He's been training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for about 6 years now, and is a huge inspiration in advocating that anything is possible, and has had a phenomenal history of competing in 2019 throughout Texas. And so we are super excited to have you all on. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So I'm curious to know, from your perspective as an instructor, as an individual yourself, have you found the grappling arts to be an inclusive environment for adaptive grapplers? Go, whoever wants to go first, go for it. No order, don't be shy.
Well, I can start from the point of my club, because I was a coach for kids without disabilities. And when I started my judo club for kids with disabilities, it was totally normal for me to include on the same training session kids with disabilities and kids without disabilities. So I love to say that we are literally living inclusion. We are not providing some inclusive program. And in our club, everything is normal. It really doesn't matter if you cannot walk, or if you cannot see, or if you're deaf. Nothing is stopping you, to learn judo and jiu-jitsu. So for in my club, it's just a normal state. It's nothing special.
I agree. If anything, those limitations are bringing something new, something different to the environment. Because, for example, I have my ability for my sternum up. So what happens is I only have to worry about a certain amount of techniques, a certain amount of mobility, which allows me to focus on a more narrow gap of that's not we're usually escaping from, but I can't escape. So jiu-jitsu just, it's all about leverage. So it didn't matter if I'm from my sternum up or if I have my core or one leg, or doesn't matter, because there's always a way to find some kind of leverage in jiu-jitsu, no matter what your limitation is. Even if you're a quadriplegic, let's say, and you have limited mobility in your arms, jiu-jitsu may not be as effective as a self-defense, but it's definitely effective as an exercise, as an environment to be around people that are happy, that are encouraging, and just in general, I think for a person with limitations, being included in the group is a big deal, especially if you had an accident and then all of a sudden you're excluded from the world. Not literally, but I mean, we have to go in and we have to take care of ourselves. I have to fix my body took several years to just fix my body so I can go out and explore and do things. But jiu-jitsu, I say, other than swimming, jiu-jitsu is the best thing for physical therapy as well, because it challenges every ability you have left, or you do have, whether you're able-bodied or limited. It's definitely going to get whatever you have left and put it on the table, and you're going to feel it. Swimming is the only thing that I can compare that to. And so all around, mentally, physically, I don't feel pain when I'm on the mat because I'm distracted. You know, someone's trying to choke me. I'm not trying to think about pain or anything. I'm trying to get out the choke or choke them. So I'm completely distracted on the mats. But as far as it's important to understand the person's limitations as well, because there's a lot of people that I have encountered with that they just want to let you know that they're still capable, that they're still hardcore, that I'll just roll another one, and then they're exhausted. But what we don't see, the people on the mats, what we don't see, or like your team doesn't see, is you going home and you can't even take a shower that night because you overworked yourself. You know, there's so many aspects to teaching a person with limitations, because their brain is still walking or their brain is still moving fast, but they don't understand that you have to, like, just like when a white belt enters jiu-jitsu, you have to establish a jiu-jitsu body, a jiu-jitsu muscle memory. And for us with limitations, especially if we're new to our limitations, it could be a lot harder just because of fatigue and not knowing that it really challenges our abilities that in such a big way. Sorry.
What about you, Ruben? Have you found that the grappling arts has been inclusive?
Yes and no, I guess. Like he was saying, like us with the limitations that we have, we bring in a new game and a new outlook, right? So like it's kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time. I see it, right? Because there's some things that I can and I can't do, right? Some things that are gonna work for me and something that are not gonna work for me. So, so I like to, like he was saying, that game plan of just walking in and just knowing that you are different, right? You are different with your limitations. So I mean, you're gonna have a different outlook on many things, and it's just like I said, I think it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I find my game actually better. I mean, because I had got my purple belt maybe a month before my accident, so I was able to get my brown belt as an amputee, right? So that was a big accomplishment in itself for me. And but yeah.
So what are some of the challenges that adaptive grapplers have had to face when it comes to inclusion and equality within the community as a whole, or within the gym environment? Have you experienced anything of that nature, or have you heard stories? And what are some areas that we can improve on, as a community in providing that support and providing that inclusion and equality?
Well, just, I mean, go. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being nice. There's nothing wrong with going up to someone and showing. I mean, because everyone was there once, right? Everyone was a white belt once. Everyone was having problems, right? And one problem for me is bridging out. I don't have that leg to stop and bridge out, so I have to find different ways to be able to do those things. So, I mean, just showing that act of kindness, I mean, that goes a long way.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's I think the main complication that someone with a limitation has in an academy is unfortunately the academy can't just write two programs. They have a whole class and you're just one person over on the side. My routine is I'm a brown belt, but my routine is I come in, and while they're doing the class, I'm watching, but I'm stretching and preparing my body for the training sessions. And then because it's hard for me to follow along with the class, but because of my knowledge, I'm able to watch, and I see a grip I can use or something I can possibly incorporate in my game. But as far as the technique itself, I can't really follow along in a class. So knowing that it's hard for an instructor to, depending on the time they have, most instructors have a job. So it's hard for them to be able to write two programs, especially if they are not entirely clear what their new student is capable of, because they're used to training able bodies. And a lot of places I would go, they say, wait, but you don't have a core. You can't bridge, you can't shrimp. How can you do jujitsu? And it's that mindset that we have as able bodies, let's say, that we're based off of understanding jujitsu in a certain way, where you're in a bad position, you escape. And it's just opening that mindset, stay in that position longer. Basically, if you have a student that has mobility issues, mimic their mobility and just stay there longer. Even if you have a teammate that's doing it, you do it. And if you have an imagination, you'll open your imagination. You'll start seeing things that they're possibly able to do because you're in that position longer. It's hard to see what a student's able to do if you're looking at jiu-jitsu from your point of view. You have to almost incorporate their mobility. In a lot of cases, you can't mimic that, but at least you could see what they're seeing, the view. I don't have peripheral. So if you're coming in with a choke, I don't know you're choking. It's coming until here because I can't move my core. So it's those type of things here. Like if I see someone's arm go up like this on side control, I know that they're pulling a gi out. I can't see what they're doing, but after being choked so many times, I figured out. So it's understanding body movement, not so much as the technique. It's what they're doing visually and then incorporating that. Like with visually impaired athletes, I thought of a way that when you're hands-on with a person and physically touching them and they can't see what you're doing, but you're showing them. And then you label those things, especially if they want to compete, you label each sequence or something like A to B, B to C, go to 1. And then that athlete ends up understanding jiu-jitsu through that instruction based off of how the physical feeling when this is A, when you go here, this is B. And then that's a good way to instruct from across the mat too. If you're over here and you see, hey, Ruben, go to B, and then they're gonna know, oh, B's to take the back or whatever the case is. So it's basically just thinking outside the box. And like Ruben said, go up to them. If you're a teammate, you're like, hey, what, you having any trouble with anything? Yeah, I'm getting stuck in triangles. I can't get out. Okay, here, let's play with it. You know, you don't need to take a private lesson with a black belt to learn a basic instruction that a purple belt can show you. You know, just chip away at your game and just be a team, pretty much. Like, try to include them. I think that is the main thing I would say.
I just want to tell you one story how I started to work this. I heard a story that one Aikido guy, he did Aikido for kids with cerebral palsy. He wanted to start judo, and he asked a few judo trainers, coaches, if it's possible to do judo for kids who cannot walk. And all of them said to him, it's not possible. And I heard that story, and after just 1 week, I opened my club and started to work judo for kids with cerebral palsy, because I'm really crazy when someone said something is not possible. So I have, I think, kids with 20 different kinds of diagnoses, and with a little creative mind, you can adapt everything to everyone. So it's really everything about your mindset.
What are so you guys jumped right into my next question is, like, what are some advice for people who are watching today, for instructors that are interested in it? How can they get their brains like wrapped around this concept of being creative, thinking outside the box? What are some tips that you have that maybe we haven't covered already, that is something that they can go back and be like, oh, okay, I want to go ahead and apply that to my student?
I just
The
think,
more
I
you
mean,
work, oh, sorry.
go ahead. Go
The
ahead.
more you work with people with different kinds of disabilities, the more creative you will become. So it's just the thing, you just have to start to do it. Don't be afraid, and your imagination will build up by the time.
It's you, right? The gym is your lab, right? So like that's where you fail 1,000 times. So like whenever you are competing, like the time where you're gonna be able to, it's go time, right? So it's just like she's saying, it's just going out there and doing it, right? Just keep seeing what works for you and what doesn't work. I mean, if you fail 1,000 times to get it right one time.
Yeah.
What about you, Max? I know you go all over the place helping people.
What, like I said before, is basically put yourself in their place, and then just try to understand that. I like to tell people to, if you have a student, then you yourself, when you're training, then you pick one day a week where you're going to not use your leg. And when I mean don't use your leg, I'm not saying just leave it, try not to use it. I mean, like, put a brace behind it so you can't bend your knee, so it's literally just stuck there. 2, tie your both legs together and put something solid behind it, so because when you're rolling, you're naturally going to go back to your instincts of your body mechanics. So it's like going to that. If you put a brace on your butt and to your back and tie it around, you will mimic where I'm at as far as mobility goes, up not being able to even move. In the chair I can move like this because I'm pushing off my elbow, but on the mat I can't move to the side. So it's just putting yourself in their position, and but more importantly, understanding their recovery and their mobility, because like I said, I've worked with a lot of wounded warriors, let's say, that are still in the let's go mindset, and they don't want to quit, and they start jiu-jitsu and they're like, let's go Pohada, and and then what happens next is they're out for a week, and you're like, what happened? They won't tell you that they were at home in bed for a week, or their leg is swollen because they overworked it on putting so much pressure on a nub, or whatever the case is. It's getting to know your student. The best approach when you have a new student with a limitation is assume that they don't know what they're capable of, and they don't know their recovery yet. They're still understanding, because no matter what you do, they could be a bodybuilder with a limitation and come to jiu-jitsu. I mean, we've all seen it. Someone big, they come to jiu-jitsu, I'm ready, and then they can't hang through one class. They're hurting. They're like out of breath and getting armbarred, and they're like, how come I can't just flex and get out of this? And it's the same concept, but with more limitations, it makes it harder. You stress your body out more. The recovery's harder, you know? So I would definitely, safety-wise, the most important thing is to understand your student's ability and their recovery time, their routine and so on. Research. If you have a student that's an amputee, research about amputees. Don't just learn from your student. Like, get background. You know, when I met someone with cerebral palsy, he was choking me. I tapped and I'm like, dude, I tapped a long time ago. He goes, I let go a long time ago. I'm like, whoa, okay. I gotta watch out for that. So it's like, and then I opened my eyes, and that's when I realized I need to research more about the limitations. And so I can then use my knowledge of jiu-jitsu to conform to whatever they need. So I think educating yourself is probably the best advice.
And I started, I didn't know anything about cerebral palsy when I started. So I learned from the physiotherapists of my kids, you know, so I connected with them. And now last year I finished a high school program for physiotherapists here in Croatia. I think the learning is number one. You have to know really a lot of things about every diagnosis, because you have to respect limitations, because they're here. You cannot pretend that they aren't here.
So I know we kind of touched on it earlier, and that, you know, it's hard, you know, the class is structured for everybody, right? Regardless of limitations. Do you think that it is beneficial to have classes specifically for adaptive athletes? And if so, what are some of the pros and cons of having a program set up like that?
It would be hard just because, I mean, there's not very many of them, like, in the sense of, like, as it is, BJJ is small, you know, there's only maybe like 3% people who do it, right? And then out of those 3%, how many of our limits, you know, that have limits? So, I mean, I would think they would be like hard, I guess, too. I mean, not hard. I mean, I think it's good, but I mean, for the most part, I mean, you're not going to walk into a gym and see many adaptive athletes in there, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like there's some things that you're going to be able to do and some things you're not. Like me, I can't go run around the mat, like, and get warmed up like that. So like how Max says, he has to sit out, warm up, stretch before he's going to get to rolling. And that's kind of the sense of that's what I do too. But like, I'm able to do like the 4 rows back, like simple things too, just little drills like that to get warmed up. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot the question.
It's okay. So we talked about like having, you know, just talking about like having classes specifically for adaptive athletes.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the pros and cons of doing that? If that's something that's maybe within the structure, is that something that academies should look at providing? And maybe that would attract more adaptive athletes by having something like that.
I think, I think it's a good idea because it'll attract more into a group that like everyone's their peers and so on. So they'll feel more comfortable, especially in having that there's a structure that's created for them. So it lets them feel like it's a safer environment. But just creating a class isn't all. You have to have some kind of guidance. That's why I provide that guidance if anyone needs it. I tell people, if you want to find an academy, just message me and give me your local Starbucks and I'll find a location for you. Then I contact that location. I talk to the black belt and let them know, like, hey, this student, they're trying to come into jiu-jitsu. This is what the situation is, or, you know, how's your environment for that? and so on. I get to know the person to make sure. And then I offer that I'll work with you. I'll send videos, whatever you need. So I think finding people who are already involved in it, you can get the fastest guidance instead of trying to figure things out. But creating a class specifically for those individuals is good, just so you can get the one-on-one without distraction. But having them exclusively in that class, I think would backfire on them, because they need to be involved with fully able bodies. Those are the people that are going to attack them. Those are the people they may compete against. So you don't have to compete to do jiu-jitsu, but if that's the case, you have to understand as much as that as possible. Even just watching what the class is teaching. If you don't know what people are learning and what they can do, you're going to be surprised every time you roll. So the reason I was able to excel faster or find the jiu-jitsu inside the jiu-jitsu is because I already understood 3 years physically. Like, I felt 3 years of fundamentals, so knowing what that feels like, what they're going to do. When they cup your arm here, they're going to arm bar. If they're on the back, it's just knowing all those tiny little details is, I think, more important than actual adaptive techniques, because you can, once you know what they're going to do to you, you can adapt easily to anything they're going to try.
What do you think,
It's hard
Marina?
for me to say, because I have the whole club organized for people with disabilities. But one of my biggest missions here in Croatia is to motivate other judo clubs to open just one adaptive group, and to make a real inclusion, to connect judokas with and without disabilities. So hopefully I will manage to do it one day. I don't know, but I think that could be a good way to include more people, because kids, for instance, today I had 10 kids with cerebral palsy on my training session and 10 kids without disabilities. So they train together. For them, it's so normal. Saturday is a adaptive judo session,
Yeah.
So I think that should be goal maybe for other BJJ academies, to have one adaptive group and to connect them together.
I want to add something, modifications, just simple modifications, a ramp on the front. A lot of people, right now I can hop over a threshold, no problem, but in the beginning I couldn't get over that threshold. So just simple modifications like that, thinking of ways that you can just adapt your environment, your academy as well, would definitely help encourage others to get in. I've gone to academies and I'm like, I just don't feel like dealing with that, so I just didn't go in, or the case. Not because I couldn't do it, I was just driving and I'm tired, and it's not encouraging when you have obstacles you have to go through just to get to the mats. So I would say that's important as well.
Absolutely. So I wanted to go into competition. So we kind of touched on that a little bit. What are some tips that you can offer for individual and not just competition, but just that you found with your students or yourselves in training regimens, recovery? You talked about that, not overtraining. What are some other things, advice that you can offer individuals that are on the same journey in structuring a regimen and structuring a recovery plan?
And recovery is big now. As you get older, you start to feel it, right? So it's like recovery is a big part of my just of everything, right? Because if my body's not right, I'm not gonna perform to my top of my ability, right? So I make sure recovery is right and everything. I mean, for the most part, it's a mindset thing. I mean, at the end of the day, you can be your worst enemy, right? And then that's why I love jiu-jitsu, because it's an individual sport. You go in there, you're gonna do what you got to do, and you're gonna handle up how you need to handle up, and I just feel being being in the hospital for those 9 months after my accident, that's what really strengthened my mind, right? So like that's where I got, and I'm still trying, right? Like where I found myself and just being able to to get closer with Christ and just with everything, right? Because I was in there by myself for a good 9 months, and that's when Hurricane Harvey hit in Houston. So I was stuck up there, and no one could come and visit me because all the roads were blocked off. So I really had time to get to know myself again, and like just to be able to build myself back up. Because of course, I mean, it's a big life change from having two legs and just like that in the blink of an eye. Your whole life changes. Your whole life changes, right? So it's like having to walk again as a baby, and it's just I feel like I said the competition, getting ready for that. It's just getting your mind right.
Ruben, would you say that it's important, if you are new to a limitation, it's important to understand your situation and come to copes with it before you start chasing something that could, because if you're using jujitsu or competition to distract you from something that you haven't actually accepted, and then you get hurt, you don't compete anymore, your life could go to shambles in a sense because you don't have that anchor.
Yeah, and that's what kind of happened to me, right? Like, cause like I said, I had just got my purple belt, and I was training for a good 4 years with both my legs, right? And just from one day to the next, I mean, my life changed. So, to be honest, Max, like my whole mindset thing after my accident and woke up was how fast was I gonna get back onto the mats, right? I still had my leg. I didn't lose my leg completely until like 6 months I caught osteomyelitis in my leg and they had to amputate it. But I wanted to amputate it as soon as I woke up and saw my leg the way it was. Because my whole mindset was, how was I going to get back to the mat as fast as possible? Because I still had goals. And I still have goals that I want to achieve, right? So, yes and no, because I just jumped in it, bro. Like, as soon as I got the okay, I just jumped in it. I didn't care who it was. And I just didn't expect any pity from anybody. You know what I'm saying? Because in competition, you're going to be going against people who are able, right? So I'm not expecting anything less, whenever I did have both my legs. So, I mean, for the most part, like you said, if they're new to it, yes. But if they're like me and you, like you said, you had 3 years already of full body and being able to know what it would feel like to be with jiu-jitsu, right? So same thing with me. So I guess if you have that background, like you have experience, and then something tragic happens like this, I just say jump in it, right? But like you said, if someone's new, of course, you're going to have to take it slowly.
Yeah. It's funny what you say. I was like 7 days after my accident, and I was still in the dark room with the morphine button. And I remember talking to someone visiting me, and they're like talking about jiu-jitsu, and my brain never even jumped thinking that I couldn't train jiu-jitsu. It wasn't even an option not going back to the mats. Like, but for some reason, I don't know if it was the morphine or if it was just not thinking like straight, but for some reason I said, oh, my legs don't work. I'll be able to just throw my leg up over their head and then connect it and do a triangle. Like I automatically thought my legs were there wasn't any bones in there for some reason. And I remember that, like thinking that was gonna be it's no problem. I didn't even think how heavy they were gonna be and anything. So it's funny how your brain, once you're stuck in it and hooked into jiu-jitsu or martial art, I think it's hard to. I don't understand how someone could quit after 3 years of jiu-jitsu or something. It's like in your DNA at that point, it feels like.
So coming back, is there any specific like regimens that you do for like training? Like I know you guys talked about, what you do to get ready, like to train. Is there anything specific that you guys do in throughout getting your training process, and that includes the recovery process as well, that people watching can benefit from. Maybe people who are training and are running into issues where they're overtraining and then ending up, not being able to train for a week after that because of that factor. Is there any advice that you guys have for individuals that are watching today?
Go ahead, Ruben.
Know their body, right? Everyone should know their limit and how far they can push it, right? I mean, there's no reason for you to try to be some, excuse my language, Billy Badass, right? And like try to be the king of the gym, right? Like it's like, and there's some people like that, right? Like they just want to go, and it's just no, don't do that.
Yeah, I say, yeah, exactly. Quality over quantity. You could train every single day, but if you're not 100%, you're going to compete the same way you train. So if you're only doing it halfway because you're nursing a rib or your got arm barred so much, so this arm's sore, and don't tuck that arm bar. Tuck that arm. Practice not getting in that arm bar. But if you're really hurt, don't come back. Come in and do exercises. Come in, keep your body moving. Come in, period. This is even for able bodies, I think the number one problem is we don't look at the time slot that we set aside for jiu-jitsu as it's already taken. Like once we can't go train and go to class, so we don't go. And then we stay at home, or we go somewhere else, or we do something, and then bad habits start coming into the picture. So I say, go. You have a slot every day that you put aside for jiu-jitsu. Just because you're hurt doesn't mean you shouldn't be going in there. It's the environment. It's the people. It's talking. It's like I went in there today and I didn't train, but hey, look at this. The physical therapy guy just happens to be there. We all know that every mat has every job on the mat, basically. If you get hurt, you're like, hey, talk to this guy. He checks you out, you go home, you understand what's wrong with your knee or whatever the case is. So I say about going in, as far as recovery goes, you still go in because it's the environment that's going to recover you faster. It's the talking with people, speaking with people, just being there, smelling the mat, smelling the environment. Now, for preparing for competition, I come from a competitive background, Letitia's competition camps and all that. They're drilling, they're repetitive, repetition. The more let's say you're a couple of months out from competing, it's pointless to try to learn anything new. You're not going to retain any of that in your muscle memory. You have to just, what you have, and focus on that and repeat it. Because when it happens when you go live, it's going to be natural. My mom tries to grab me from the back and I'm like this, like it's just natural muscle memory. So it's no different than getting prepared for your own competition than what you would prepare a person with limitation. The only difference would be focusing on their recovery and how it's affecting them. Perfect example. I came down to Miami. I signed up for Pan Ams. I'm ready to compete. I have all these new techniques I've been training, practicing. I trained hard for Pan Am. And then the last training day at noon, I have all this energy still. And I decided everyone was leaving. I decided to just do my body movement, roll in and just getting a little more exercise in. I went on over to like a berimbolo and I heard and I popped my rib and I couldn't go to Pan Am's. It was like, I knew I shouldn't have done that, but I said, but you have all this energy. Let's just get one more thing in there. And then I just, everything went out the window. So it's just creating a plan, a regimen, and then sticking to it. Class ended. That was my last training, and I didn't stick to my plan, and I did a little more training, and I got hurt. So it's like Ruben said, know your body and know your routine. Talk with people that are competitors. If they don't compete, it's hard to get competition advice from them if they haven't been in the position themselves. So it's just, I guess, opening up to all your opportunities and listening to your body, you know.
Absolutely. What about you, Marina? Is there anything else you'd like to add? I know you've competed at an Olympic level and working with students. Is there things that you will tell the parents maybe after, or advice you give to them regarding the students, you know, development and involvement?
Well, my kids are not going to competitions because we don't have any. We are the first judo club of this kind in Croatia. But there is one technique I do with my students, and it's maybe connected with your question. They don't have a proper breathing techniques, so I incorporate it in every training session, and we are literally learning how to breathe, you know. And some of them even added some kind of meditation, and it's very useful for them maybe during the training session when they are running out of the oxygen, you know, just to stop and they concentrate and on their breathing. So maybe this is somehow connected to your question.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, go ahead.
About the competitions, they didn't have any, you know. We have just our internal tournaments in the club I'm organizing for them.
Is students with cerebral palsy, is it normal that they have breathing problems, or?
It's normal for them that they don't have a proper breathing technique. So they simply just don't have it naturally, and they have to develop it. And it's very hard to make for them that mind-muscle connection, you know, not just for breathing, for everything. Yeah. So they have to be very focused when we are working these exercises.
I can understand that to an extent, because when I lost my core and everything, I can't sneeze properly. I can't get that breath to sneeze. And then when my body does it automatically, it's very painful because it's not something I normally, and then instantly it feels really good because I'm getting a full breath. Yes. But I started working my diaphragm, understanding how to pull my diaphragm in and so on. And since I've been doing that with Alvaro Romano at the Gymnastica Natural, he taught me how to use my diaphragm and breathing technique. And now I can sneeze, I can cough, I can, and like you said, when you're in the training and you're in a bad position or they're putting pressure on you, I'm able to fight through that with breathing and still get through it. So yeah, I agree. It's definitely a big importance, breathing.
Really. So as adaptive athletes going out and competing, are there any strategies that you guys have that you implement that can maybe you'd like to share that could help benefit other individuals that are wanting to go out and compete?
I think there's two categories for that, because you have the adaptive competitions and you have the able-bodied competition. If you're thinking about competing, number one, you should most definitely understand your body. If you have a student that wants to compete, you most definitely should understand their body and their motivation behind it. Are they just trying to prove something? Because I was trying to prove something the whole time. I came from a competitive background and I'm like, I got to get back out there. Jiu-jitsu is about leverage. I can compete against able bodies. I went to Worlds 2 years in a row. And then one day I was saying to Master Helion, I said, oh, I'm going to go Worlds 2017. And he looked at me and said, if you keep chasing competition without improving your body, you're going to quit jiu-jitsu, and walked away. And I was like, whoa, like it was coming, and it opened my mind and I focused on my body. And then in 2018, I came back. I went all over the world to compete, but he was completely right. It's important. I always do that. I forgot where we were going with that. Sorry.
It's okay. Talking about strategies and going out and competing.
Okay, so in strategy wise, I would say, like I said earlier, like stick to your game plan, but understanding what your abilities are, because when you try to go outside of your abilities, all you're going to do is get hurt. It's easier, way easier for us to get hurt. If I'm trying to throw someone over my shoulder and I'm not training properly, and I do something I never did before, and I slam them on my legs and break my legs. What's the point of that? It's not Olympics. It's not gold medal on the line. It's just a local competition or something. So it's being understanding of your abilities and your game plan and sticking to your game plan. Oh, very important is if you have a student that's going to compete, it's most important that you're in their corner. You cannot leave. If you're the one training them every day and they know your voice and they listen to your instruction, and then you're off somewhere else and they're there, they're going to be lost in a sense, because especially if it's their first competition. So I'd say making sure having multiple people working with them. Let's say you're working with Reuben and I'm working with Reuben. If you're busy at the competition, I can still coach Reuben because we all did it together. So I think that communication and also training together as a group, if they're competitive nature. So for me, it's about safety. The more communication you can get, the better the safer competition.
Absolutely. Is there anything else either one of you'd like to add in far as strategies go? Okay, moving on. So you touched on it before. I know that there were a couple other promoters out there that were doing adaptive grappling specific tournaments. What are your thoughts on exclusively adaptive grappler tournaments and able-bodied mixed? What thoughts do you have on that? And is it more beneficial to just have encourage individuals with limitations to just do the adaptive grappling tournaments, or to do both?
To do both, because I want all the smoke. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I want to test myself because I know I can be out there with whoever. You know what I'm saying? So I'm confident in my game to know that I can be out there and compete with the best.
I say if your limitations give you the opportunity to be able to do those. For example, if I was a white belt, going against able bodies would be extremely dangerous. I can only do that because I'm a brown belt. So at some point the jiu-jitsu is going to outweigh your limitations. So I would, but then again, when I go and compete against fully able-bodied opponents, it's much more easier than going against someone with a limitation. Because someone with the limitations, they're just like you would be against me, where you take side control, but I'm not shrimping away. You're like, wait a second, he's not moving. So it's going to confuse you in a sense and pause because you're used to my muscle memory and reacting to that muscle memory. So competing against someone with a limitation, it makes it harder because they're not moving. Now it's a mind game, and who's going to if we're just staring at each other and we both have a color and we're not moving, it's like now it's going to be a fight for the choke game, and we're just staring at each other. It's like so I think it's important based on your limitation. Some people can only do adaptive competitions because of the severity of their mobility or their limitation, or some people, I know that if you choke someone, they could possibly die, if you don't see what the signs are. When I went to compete in a few competitions, I was helping develop the para program for the JJIF, and I asked for a extra referee to just watch my legs, because my legs will spasm And if my leg spasms up and I can't feel it and I can't see it, and I think I can roll this way, I'm just gonna break or pop my hip up. I used to use my legs in jiu-jitsu, and I had my heel up against my butt, choking someone on this side. I lost the choke. He went around my back, and just this movement spiral fractured my femur. And we both looked at each other like, what was that? And then I went in to get an x-ray, and she's like, oh my God, don't move. Because I thought it was a knee, and it was just the perfect spiral fracture on my femur. Because I wasn't properly, that's a good point as far as if you have a student, I wasn't properly educated on bone density. So I wasn't even able to tell Letitia to even watch out for that, for example. So your student may not even know what their dangers are.
What about you, Marina? What's your thought on, I know you guys don't have any yet, but what are your thoughts on the
In judo,
concept?
there are strictly divided competitions for ability and adaptive judo and non-adaptive judo. And in our case, I think it is a good thing because, for instance, my judokas, in judo, you have 5 levels of disabilities, and the 5th level is the level for judokas who aren't able to walk. So I don't see any other options for my judo players to compete than in level 5, in adaptive judo competitions. So we planned to go 2 years ago on our first competition in Ireland, but then the COVID came in, so hopefully we will prepare. In the next, I lost the picture. What? Can you see me?
Yep, you're still here.
I cannot see anything. Okay, I will not move because my screen is black.
Oh, well, we can hear you and see you, so you're good.
Okay, great. So I hope in the future, maybe next year, we will go to our first competition, and it will definitely be adaptive judo competition.
There's a lot of organizations adding adaptive jiu-jitsu, which is great because it's provided more opportunities, even some super fights and so on. So the opportunities in the future are only going to get better. The awareness of when I started 2012, I went online and I was in the hospital and I didn't see anything. I couldn't find anything that had to do with adaptive jiu-jitsu. I spoke to Rose Gracie at the competition, and she goes, there's a guy named Tyler competing. That was the only person that was on the mats that I could find because it wasn't out there. And then just 9 years later, it's like everyone's training. There's competition. So it's only going to get, I mean, you ladies remember, I remember when I started jiu-jitsu in 2009, the women would show up to the competition, either get a refund or a gold medal. And that was the choice. And the black belts were black and brown brackets. So same concept. I see it basically happening all over again. It's just eventually you're going to see more people coming to the competition where they're going to start adding the brackets because of the numbers.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and close out with this final opportunity for you guys to give some advice for individuals watching today that have an interest in the grappling arts and maybe have hesitations or have, thoughts of, oh, I can't do that. What advice would you give to them, encouraging them to get on the mats, to try it at least, to see if it's something they enjoy? What would you like to say to those individuals watching today?
You have nothing to lose. You just have to try.
Just show up, man. Show up and just, you're either going to catch the bug or not. You know what I'm saying? It's not for everyone. It is for everyone, but not everyone is able to stick it out, right? You see people coming in and out of the gym, new faces. So it's just show up. You never know. It's a great, it's another family. You get to meet new people, and you just get to, you know, like I said, it's just like another family, right? So that's show up and like Marina, what do you have to do? You have nothing to do.
I'd say one thing I think I should bring up is the instructors or the owners of the academy. For someone like myself, brand new coming in to train Para Jiu Jitsu, a week's not going to cut it. Like it's almost like you'd have to give a free month trial to that student, because when I come in and I train on Monday, and then I have to take 3 days to recover because I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that, or I overdid it. My week's already halfway gone. So a month trial will help any limitation understand jiu-jitsu, because you don't want them to just come in and say, wow, that was too much, I can't handle that, and then they quit. You know, you have to give them the opportunity for their body to catch on to jiu-jitsu, I would say. And if you're trying to, I always say, if you're looking for an academy, message me. I'll help you find an academy that best fits your situation. But if you are trying to find an academy on your own, don't commit to the first academy you go to. There's like 3 or 4 in your neighborhood. Jiu-jitsu is getting big. Go to all three or 4. You can get a free trial at all of them. Find the best connection with the person is most important, because if you can't connect personality-wise, you're not going to learn anything from them. It's a disaster that's waiting to happen. So connect personally. Is the environment accessible? You know, if I can handle that, but the locker room's this, so I can have to dress in my van. I can handle that if the personality and the environment was worth it. But if it's not, then it's like, okay, I got to look at the accessibility of the academy. If you trained jiu-jitsu prior to your accident or before, even within a limitation, and you're coming back, are you coming back to train with a known name, and that's why you want to go to the academy, and you're neglecting all of the everyday stuff you're going to have to deal with, like getting over this curb or this thing, or parking, there's no parking. Those are the things that are going to discourage you from coming in. So, and you're like, but I have to park so far, and then I don't feel like doing that. But once you get in the mats, whether you're able-bodied or not, you're like glad you're there. But it's all the stuff that's in your way to get to the mats that stop you. So I would say choose your academy wisely based on accessibility, more important, personality, the instruction. Do you understand how they're talking? And then also the environment. If there's with more women and you're a woman coming in, maybe that's the academy you would be in, because you can relate to the environment more. So I would say don't pick your first academy you go to. Try them all out, understand, talk. Don't be afraid to discuss. Go in with a list, because we all freeze when we're like, oh, I had questions and I forgot them all. So go in with your list, let them know, like, just be proactive and explain what you want. Remember that most instructors have no clue how to teach you when you come in. They're like, this is new to me. So communication will let them know more about you, and then you can choose your academy wisely. And don't push it. Like I said, don't go in there trying to be hardcore for a week and then you're not going to come back. Just gradually go in there. You should be watching the first go in. You should never be rolling the first week. I hear some horror stories where, no, I tried jiu-jitsu, but I broke my arm, and I'm not doing that again. And I say, well, how'd you break your arm? Well, I rolled with this guy, and I'm like, how long did you train? 2 weeks. I'm like, why are you even rolling? Is my question, you know? So it's that I guess that's a key thing. If you're told to go roll with somebody right away, you should try to say, I don't know, and definitely roll with a higher belt if it's your first time. When you roll with lower belts, is more how you get hurt. So just be wise, mindful.
Honestly, I think that's some great advice for for able body and adaptive grappler as well. You dropped some serious advice for newbies as a whole. But I'm gonna go ahead and close and let you guys, if there's anything you'd like to plug. I know that you guys have some great organizations that you started up and are working with. So if there's ways for people to get involved, somehow go ahead, shout out your website, your social media, by all means.
Well, mine's easy. Just go, instead of BJJ, it's P as in Para Jiu Jitsu magazine. So pjjmag.com, and that'll link you to everything that I'm involved in. And I'm revamping the website now, so we're going to start opening up different avenues soon. And then that's how you can link to anything that I'm doing. And also, it's a free magazine. So you can download the PDF, and if you know anyone with a limb, helps explain the benefits of how it helped other people with limitations.
Absolutely. And Marina, how can people get involved and help your club, make donations? We might have lost her.
So I don't know if you can hear me, because
Yep.
I cannot see you and I'm hardly hear you. You're hearing. Okay. Well, you can find us on Instagram. We are Judo Team Fuji, and we have a Facebook and we have a web page. So since we are running out of donations, we have a PayPal account. I deleted it a few weeks ago from our Instagram account because we had a crowdfunding campaign, but I will put it back. So if anyone needs to contact us or wants to help us, you can contact us through the Instagram or Facebook.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining in today. We appreciate having you all a part of this discussion. I think you guys dropped a lot of information here for instructors and for adaptive grapplers out there wanting to join the art or who are within the art and needed some guidance. You have amazing resources. Thank you so much for providing these resources for individuals. Both of you guys are prime examples of people who saw something missing in this world, and instead of hoping and wishing it would happen, you went out there and made it happen. So I think that's very honorable of both of you, and thank you so much for providing those resources, and thank you all for being a part of this discussion today. We look forward to having you guys on again, and take care. Thank you everybody for tuning in today, and take care.